What happens when a senator stops arguing in broad slogans and starts reading the paperwork back to a cabinet secretary in public? That is the core reason this hearing clip exploded online. This was not just another cable news shouting match. Senator Cory Booker's line of questioning hit because it followed a formula viewers instantly understand. Ask a simple question, get a vague answer, then pull out the receipts. And once that pattern started, the entire hearing changed tone. For a U.S. audience, the reason this lands so hard is simple. You do not need to know every detail of immigration law to understand the basic theme. If a federal agency says it follows the law, then lawmakers and the public are going to judge that claim against court rulings, agency conduct, and how taxpayer money gets spent. Booker framed the hearing around exactly that gap, the difference between what DHS says and what records, lawsuits, and reported incidents appear to show. So let's break down why this moment went viral, what Booker actually argued, which facts were cited in the hearing ecosystem around it, and why the story got bigger once the conversation moved from detentions to court orders to money. Because the most dangerous moment for a public official in a hearing is not when the other side gets loud. It is when the documents start lining up in a way regular viewers can follow. At the center of the exchange was one of the oldest accountability questions in Washington. If you run the agency, do you own the outcomes? Booker repeatedly pressed the idea that the secretary cannot claim the authority of the office when things go right and then suddenly become detached from the details when serious allegations surface. That buck stops with you framing is politically effective because it translates bureaucracy into something viewers immediately understand. Leadership means responsibility, especially when liberty, detention, and constitutional rights are involved. One of the most emotionally powerful parts of the exchange involved the allegation that American citizens were detained or caught up in enforcement actions. In the referenced video's transcript, Booker cites public records that he says show more than 170 incidents of the agency unlawfully taking away the liberty of U.S. citizens, including 20 children. He also references a case involving Isaiah Pina-Salado, described as a U.S. citizen in California who was allegedly detained for more than 70 hours even after showing a passport. Those are the kinds of examples that instantly convert an abstract policy debate into a personal rights story. Now, to stay accurate and compliant, here's the distinction that matters. In a commentary video, you should present those as claims raised in the hearing and repeated in the referenced reporting, not as your own unqualified factual conclusions unless you have independently verified every case file. That distinction protects credibility and helps keep the video inside responsible political commentary rather than drifting into overstatement. The next reason the hearing traveled is that it did not stay limited to one anecdote. Booker widened the frame. He moved from individual cases to a broader accusation that DHS and ICE were showing a pattern of acting first and sorting legality out later. In the transcript, he describes children in New Jersey being terrified by enforcement activity, references alleged incidents near schools, and accuses the department of creating fear in communities rather than narrowly targeting dangerous actors. Whether viewers agreed with every conclusion or not, the political effect was obvious. The hearing was no longer about abstract enforcement policy. It became a referendum on competence, restraint, and control. And then came the pivot that makes political content truly viral. Follow the money. Once Booker shifted from personal stories and constitutional language into a detailed spending example, the clip became easier to package, easier to title, and easier for audiences to repeat in one sentence. According to the transcript and follow-up reporting, he confronted Noem over DHS's purchase of a warehouse in Roxbury Township, New Jersey, for $129.3 million, and contrasted that with an assessed value of roughly $62 million. That is the kind of number gap that instantly catches fire online, because even viewers who do not follow the issue closely understand what paid more than double means. Multiple reports reinforce the political controversy around that site. Gothamist reported that the administration planned to pay $129.3 million for the facility and that local records showed a much lower tax assessment. NJ.com similarly reported on the $129.3 million purchase of the 470,000 square foot warehouse and detailed local backlash around infrastructure, public safety, tax revenue, and the broader detention center plan. That matters for your script because it lets you broaden the story from a gotcha hearing moment into a bigger theme about spending, local opposition, and management priorities. There is another part of the Roxbury story that makes the politics even rougher for DHS. According to Gothamist, the all-Republican Township Council voted unanimously against the proposed facility. That detail matters because it breaks the easy partisan script. This was not simply national Democrats complaining while local conservatives cheered. Reporting indicated that local Republican officials had their own concerns about infrastructure, water and sewer capacity, emergency resources, and whether the township could absorb a detention operation of that scale. For commentary, that is a strong credibility point because it shows the backlash was wider than one ideological lane. But if the warehouse story gave the segment financial punch, the court order issue gave it legal gravity. In the referenced video, Booker asks directly whether the agency complies with court orders. After the answer is yes, he counters with reported examples that he says show the opposite. Specifically, the transcript cites a chief judge in Minnesota finding that ICE had violated nearly 100 court orders since January 1st, and says that in New Jersey, the government admitted to violating 52 separate court orders in cases involving detention challenges. That exchange is the heart of the viral clip because it compresses the whole argument into one devastating contrast, the official answer versus the documented rebuttal. That broader theme also appears in outside reporting. NPR reported that the chief federal judge in Minnesota said ICE had violated close to 100 court orders during the immigration crackdown there and discussed the concern that what might once have been explained away as delay or inefficiency was starting to look like something much more serious. The NPR segment also noted that this alarm was coming from a judge not easily dismissed as a partisan firebrand, which increases the weight of the warning for a general audience. Courthouse News likewise reported that the Justice Department admitted more than 50 court order violations in New Jersey immigration cases, including missed bond hearing deadlines, improper transfers, and at least one removal in violation of an injunction. The article says the government's attorney described the violations as unintentional and expressed regret, but the judge still emphasized that judicial orders should never be violated and that such conduct is exceptionally rare for federal officials. That gives your script a strong way to stay balanced. Present the admission, note the explanation, and then note why judges still treated the issue as serious. This is why the hearing hit such a nerve online. Booker's argument was not simply, "I dislike your policies." It was closer to, if the allegations, court findings, and public records are this serious, then the issue is no longer policy preference. It is whether the agency has become reckless, legally exposed, financially sloppy, and publicly unaccountable. That is a much more viral frame because it gives viewers several entry points: civil liberties, government waste, local control, court authority, and basic managerial competence. And politically, Booker's strongest line may not have been any single accusation. It may have been the structure of the questioning itself. He kept forcing the conversation back to first principles: liberty, due process, compliance with court orders, and stewardship of taxpayer dollars. That structure is why the clip works for YouTube. Audiences retain frameworks better than details. If your edit keeps returning to those four pillars, liberty, law, money, accountability, the video will feel focused rather than chaotic, even when the facts are numerous. So how should you narrate this for maximum retention? First, treat the opening as a challenge question. Second, escalate into the human stories. Third, pivot into the money. Fourth, land on the court order problem. And fifth, close with the big unresolved question. If the secretary says the agency is under control, why do the hearing transcript, reported cases, local backlash, and judge statements paint such a different picture. That structure mirrors the emotional journey of the clip itself, and it is exactly what makes viewers watch to the end. Now, here is the key compliance reminder for your final cut. Do not present a commentary video like raw republishing. Keep the narration constant. Use short excerpts only where necessary. Add graphics, lower thirds, source screenshots, pauses for analysis, and explicit attribution on screen. When discussing contested allegations, say, Booker argued, the hearing transcript says, reported by or according to court filings and news reports. That phrasing is not weaker, it is smarter, safer, and more credible. At the end of the day, the reason this moment spread is not hard to understand. Voters can disagree over immigration policy. They can disagree over border strategy. They can disagree over detention standards, federal authority, and executive power. But once a hearing starts revolving around allegedly detained U.S. citizens, reported court order violations, and a 9-figure warehouse purchase that local officials say should never have happened the way it did, the conversation changes. That is no longer just ideology. That is an argument about whether power is being exercised competently, lawfully, and honestly. And that is why Booker's questioning landed. He did not rely on outrage alone. He made the hearing legible. He translated bureaucracy into consequences. He connected paperwork to people, court orders to credibility, and spending decisions to public trust. Whether you think his conclusion went too far or not far enough, the viral force of the moment came from one thing. He made viewers feel like they were watching the record catch up with the rhetoric in real time. So here's the question for you. When a federal agency says everything is under control, what should matter more, the talking points or the trail of hearings, court filings, local objections, and spending records left behind? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns where we slow down the politics and focus on the receipts, subscribe and stay tuned.